So just yesterday, the Piers Morgan show had Ben Shapiro on to talk about the aftermath of the Donald Trump assassination attempt. And we're not allowed to use clips of Piers Morgan, but I will tell you this. They played a montage of left-wing commentators and comedians, including a clip of myself hosting the main show of the Young Turks, comparing Donald Trump to Hitler in different ways. The clip they showed of me was me saying President Fantasyland is borrowing from Adolf Hitler's language. But guess what? That's because he was. That's because he was talking about poisoning the blood of our country. That's because he talked about wanting to be a dictator on day one. That's because he has done things to marginalize minority groups. He has done things to say there will be mass deportation of millions and millions of people here in this country seeking refuge. That is because of the actions that that person has taken. And thankfully, Ben Shapiro correctly said that a shooter is the only one responsible for a shooting. Later in the show, their language got a bit stronger and said that this exact kind of commentary is what led to the circumstances that caused the former president to be shot at. No, it didn't. And by the way, if you think it's out of bounds for people to compare someone with extreme violent rhetoric and the exact words of Adolf Hitler to Adolf Hitler, then maybe Trump's own running mate shouldn't have compared him to Hitler and said he's not sure if he's a useful idiot or the new Hitler.
Candidate, he was fundamentally divisive, arrogant. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
Terrible candidate. Idiot if you voted for him. Might be America's Hitler. Might be a cynical a-hole. Cultural heroine. Noxious and reprehensible.
But I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and it's leading the white working class to a very dark place.
If the person you choose to be your vice presidential nominee, if literally that's the best ally you can find, maybe it's because the Hitler comparisons are pretty apt. And so I guess it's fair game if that's even somebody you're perfectly aligned with saying the exact same thing. Maybe then it's not the commentators blowing it out of proportion. Maybe it's an apt comparison as something we are trying to say to warn people of horrible possibilities. We all know he's not Hitler. We all know that he has not, thankfully, committed the egregious, horrible crimes against humanity that Adolf Hitler did. But the way to stop that is to warn people about what roads lead to a horrible time in history such as that. They literally said the guy nearly got shot because of the consequences of language like that swilling around. No. That is not true. The guy nearly got shot because of a deranged person who, all reports thus far, did not seem to be a political ideologue, didn't seem to be particularly moved by any set of political talking points or commentary. It's just come out that he was searching the locations and schedules of both Biden and Trump. He was a registered Republican, it seems, but he also apparently donated $15 to a progressive cause years before. What we need to do to tamp down gun violence in this country is to make regulations that tamp down gun violence, is to make sure that we do not make it easier for deranged people to gain access to weapons of war, to make sure the Supreme Court doesn't undo, as an ideological Supreme Court that it is, the ban on bump stocks that was even put in place during the Trump administration, making it now again, so that's overturned, people can turn their guns basically into machine guns. We can have common sense regulations that enable people to retain their right to bear arms while not having weapons of war, while not having them when they're emotionally unstable, while not being able to target innocent people. And that does not mean we have to get rid of free speech in this country. That means we need more free speech, and we need to hold each other responsible for our actions and for our ability to, God forbid, take on horrible actions. Thankfully, Donald Trump was spared in this shooting. Tragically, a father was killed in that audience. 2 others were seriously wounded. The people in that crowd that were killed had nothing to do with rhetoric, nor Donald Trump having his ear grazed had anything to do with rhetoric. It had to do with access to guns, and had to do with a polarizing man that will say and do anything to rile people up. That's not the commentators reporting on it. That's the candidate himself who needs to take responsibility for speaking responsibly and for not doing anything to swirl truth, to distort truth in this country for your own personal aims. It's responsibility when you want to lead people to do so in a genuine and honest way. And it is our responsibility as commentators to call people out when they do not do that. I'm Ben Gleib for Rebel HQ. You can follow me at Ben Gleib on Instagram for lots more.